Hi, this is Jenny from myenergyshift.com, and today we're going to make bread. I love bread. I can give up meat, milk, eggs, all that, but I can't give up bread. If I ever became gluten intolerant, I think I would really be sad. But I'm not, so I'm going to make some bread. Now this is a recipe that came from Martha Stewart. It was for a boule, a big round loaf of bread, and I have made it as a round loaf of bread. I made it a couple times. It was very good. And I decided to make it into 2 loaves today, simply for the convenience of it. I take half and I freeze it, and then the other half that I will eat. So we're going to make 2 loaves of a boule bread. It's a very simple recipe, not very many ingredients, absolutely no oil, no eggs, no milk, anything in it, just good organic flour mostly. So let's make some bread.
This bread does take a little forethought. You need to make a little starter mix that sits between 8 to 12 hours. So I usually make it the night before and it's ready to go the next day. You're going to want a half a cup of flour, a 1/4 teaspoon of yeast, and a 1/3 cup of lukewarm water. Mix that all up, put a cover on it, and let it sit overnight. It'll be nice and bubbly by the time it's done the next day. Before I got started on my bread, I went ahead and heated my oven up to 170 to get it warmed so that it can rise a little bit better. So I just set my oven up for 170. Once it gets there, I turn it off and leave the door closed, and it's often pretty nice and warm for the bread to have a nice environment to rise. Next, you want to get 1 2/3 cup of lukewarm water and add another teaspoon of yeast to that until it's nice and frothy. I happen to use a KitchenAid mixer for this particular bread with a dough hook, but you can definitely make it by hand if you don't have a mixer. You're going to want to start with the dough mix, the starter mix, putting it in your bowl. You're going to add 3 teaspoons of salt. The recipe called for 4, and I thought that was too much. So I did 3 teaspoons of salt. Then you're going to put in your water mixture with the yeast. If at all possible, buy a nice organic flour. You're less likely to have glyphosate in it, which is what all wheat is sprayed with to dry it out in the field. So if it's organic, it shouldn't contain that ingredient. While the mixture's running, you want to add another 4 cups of flour. The recipe called for 3.5 cups of flour and then 1/2 cup of rye flour, and I did not choose to add the rye flour, but you definitely could do that if you want to. And let it mix and mix until it's getting really, the flour is well incorporated and it starts to pull away from the bowl. This is what my dough looked like after it was totally mixed up and ready to start rising. I did not want my bread dough to dry out, so I sprayed it with some Pam, some olive oil, and then I put a plastic cover over the top, placed it in my oven, and I let it rise for about 1.5 hours. This is what my bread dough looked like after about 1.5 hours. So once I got that out of the oven, I punched it down. I split it into 2 equal loaves and I sprayed my pans with some Pam so it wouldn't stick, and they came out beautifully, by the way. And then I split them into 2 loaves and let them rise for about another hour. Once the loaves had risen, I preheated my oven to 425, baked them on the bottom shelf for about half an hour or so. I turned them around after 15 minutes, and they came out beautifully golden brown and delicious.
All right, so I've cut the bread. Here it is, all cut, nice. It's already cooled, so it's not hot to touch. Nice shape to it, no big holes, very solid bread. I heated just a little bit of it up with a little bit of vegan butter. My favorite breakfast in the whole world. I love this stuff. As you can see, it's really not a hard bread to make, especially if you have a bread maker. If you don't, simply get a little muscle power in there and eat. So I hope you enjoy this bread. It is definitely worth making. Again, this is Jenny from myenergyshift.com. If you enjoyed the bread recipe, please let me know in the comments down below. Subscribe to my channel, and I'll be back here again pretty soon with another plant-based recipe. Namaste.